Welcome back to another advanced GameMaker Studio tutorial with some screen magic which you're seeing on the bottom. So mist, fog, or later on we will do a little bit from right going to the left, kind of a wind effect, and this stuff is being made possible with particles. And if you don't know what particles are, link in the description below. And second of all, if you're a little bit unsure about how cameras work, link in the description also below, because I'm gonna brush over that stuff quite fast. But if you're up for the ride, let's get started after this little announcement. So I'm Wannabendy. So if you like what you're seeing, consider sharing and liking that stuff, and of course subbing if you're not a sub already. And one thing I'm gonna show for myself, I made this Udemy course, so if you're up and want to become an indie developer but you're not sure where to start, link in the description below. Check it out if you're up for this kind of stuff. Alright, so let's go and check out what we actually need to check out. So let's go in here. So basically what we are doing, we are creating a particle system. I don't know, this is an object. Now we place it here or here. Doesn't really matter where you want to place it. And then first of all, what we want to do is basically, let's make first of all a wind effect. So we're going with the wind, which is starting somewhere here, here, here. It doesn't really matter. And then it's just going from right to the left, and then this is basically it. And then we spawn a few, I don't know, every 30 seconds or every 30 steps, so something like this. So let's go right into the GameMaker engine and kill all that stuff. So we build that thing from the start, and of course Windows, close all, so we don't need everything else. So what we're going to do is quite easy. We just have one object, call it whatever you like, place it of course inside the room, so somewhere here. As you can see, here is kind of my camera. It's not completely this one because I'm using an external system, but so this is just so you know, hey, this is like 320 pixels by 180, so this is just so you see as a reference. And then what we're going to do, we spawn some things and then they go to the left, and then we will refine it a little bit more because this is not the most optimal way. So the first thing which we like to do is first of all create our alarm. So alarm, okay, I cannot write, here we go, alarm 0, because hey, why not, let's go with the first one. Let's make everything a little bit bigger and set it to a time variable, because hey, this is the easiest way to control everything. And set this, I don't know, to 30. So after 30 steps this alarm is getting triggered, and then here we will create our particles. But for now we haven't set up any particles, and for that we need two things. First of all, a particle system, and then we need to define the particle and of course create it so we can access it. So what we're going to do, well, first of all we say like, hey, we need a particle system. So we just say, hey, particle system, make a variable and set it to what? Part system, come on, and create. Here we go. And then this is it. So basically this is how it works. Nothing special about that. And then of course we want to have a particle, so we call it particle. Did I call it particle wind? So here we go, copy pasting that stuff. And then we of course need to create this particle so we can customize it further on. So type and then create end, nah, not clear, create, come on, here we go. And then we have created it, and for that we don't need too many informations. First of all, it needs to let's go here. First of all, we need to give it a position which we define in a few seconds. Then we need to give it a shape or whatever. You can use your custom sprites or some shapes which are preloaded. So this is the cool part. I'm going to use one of those preloaded things. And then it needs a direction, so it goes left. It needs a speed, and it needs some kind of alpha value, so it's not completely let's say transparent or not completely like overwhelming, because we like to have it smooth. And of course at some point it needs to get deleted, because hey, we don't want it to be lingering around. Therefore we need to define its life, which is just a value for its destruction. And then what else do we need to have? Well, a specific size. For here we just use 1 easy peasy stuff. And then we can blend them, but this is an optional, we don't really actually need that. So for that, first of all, we say like, hey, so we customize it, so part type, and then we go for shape. And shapes, there are different kind of ones. So for example, if you open that stuff up, there are different kind of shapes. So pixel, disc, square, whatever, and these are those shapes. And what we're going to use is the pretty cool one, which I'm going to use is the cloud. So here, of course, you can play around with all the other ones. So if you don't know how to access it, just go, I don't know, F1, and then in your browser it will open up. So the manual is now outside. For that, we need a few input parameters. So it's asking you END, which is just, I don't know, your particle which we created. And then we use the shape, which was the cloud shell. So PT shape, and as you can see here, you have different ones, but we just go for cloud. So we have our cloud shape, goody. Then we define its size, so part type size. Here we go. And then we don't want it to do anything specific. We just want it to be, I don't know, 1, max increasing, nah, not going bigger, not going smaller, and wiggling, nope. And then the next thing, well, we need to define where it's going. So part type direction. Here we go. And for that, of course, once again, which particle we want to use? Well, our wind particle once again, and then minimal direction, maximum. And because we want to go to the left, so once again, these are the directions. This is 0, 90, 180 degrees is to the left. So what do? We put in as maximum and minimum 180. Of course, if you don't like it that way, you can of course have, let's say, 170 to 160, something like this. So, but here we just go between just one value, so you see it a little bit clearer. And then, do we want to increase it? Nope. Do we want to wiggle it? Nope. And then of course now it's not flying because hey, it's not happening. And therefore, what do? We need to give it a speed so it actually moves around. So type speed. Here we go. Once again, put it into the particle we actually want to customize, and then minimum speed. What kind of values did I put in? Speed 1.5 to 2. So here we want to have some which are faster, some are a little bit slower. And increase, nope, because wind is not really increasing. Then wiggling, nah. And then we are almost finished. Then we want to give it an alpha, so basically the transparency. And then of course you have 3 different kind of alphas. Here we just go with 1. This is good enough for us. Later on we will have a little difference in this kind of regard, but here once again, this is the easiest part. And then, well, what do we put in? 0.1. This means it is 10%. And then, well, if you want to have it even subtler, then we go for different kind of values, but hey, let's start with that. And for now, we just have created our particle system. Then the particle, we customize it with tons of values, but now we haven't created it, and therefore we need to first of all loop our alarm. So alarm, set, then go for 0, and well, what kind of time we want to put in? Well, this is variable, so basically this is the handy part. If you store it into a variable, then you can loop it all the time. And now we want to create this particle, and here you can actually do different kind of things, but let's say for example we just want to create it like that, which is a terrible way, by the way. So what could we do? We could just say like, hey, create the particle, so particle, then create. Of course you can create color, but nah, let's go for the easy one. And then which one do we want to create? So first of all, END, and if you go here, END, this is not the same. This is very confusing in my opinion, because here END means basically the index, so basically the particle, and here this means the index of the particle system. and here part type. So this is concerning how they named it, really bad idea, but alright. And then we need some coordinates, and as you can see in my room, we want to create it somewhere here. So what we could do is just basically go, because this is like 320 width and 180 height, you can just say like, hey, let's go for 340, because then we are a little bit outside. And then, I don't know, go with a random value, random y value, which could be between 0 and I don't know, random range. So here we're just defining a range. Let's go for very small numbers, and let's go between 0 to 180. So let's make this clear. This is a very flawed approach, by the way. You will see it in a few seconds why that is, but of course it will work without taking the camera into consideration. And then it says, hey, what kind of particle do we actually want to spawn? Well, this particle. And then how many? Let's go for, I don't know, let's go for 1. And now, for example, once we start that thing, this will of course work, but not too good. And then, as you can see, it is creating randomly. This is maybe not too visible, so let's make the alpha value a little bit higher so you can actually see it, 0.5. Let's start it again. Of course, later on you want to have it as a subtle effect, therefore you will have the alpha a little bit less, and as you can see, doesn't look too good, and the life is too short because we haven't defined our life. So here this already does work, but let's say we are going with our guy, and we are not spawning any. So as you can see, it is starting somewhere here, and this is completely flawed because this is not going with our camera. So not the best solution. Of course, if you have just one image, so basically one level with one size, then you can use hard numbers, but for now this is not good. And for that we need to have a few values which we like to grab. So first of all, what we need to have is first of all our camera width and our height. Let's go for another color, come on. Yes, we can. Let's go for some orange. Yes, orange is always good. So we need the camera width and the camera height. So we can grab that thing. Bam. But let's say our camera is moving, and for that we need to have this point here, which is the camera X and Y, because that white triangle can actually move. So this is the camera position, and then of course this thing is getting updated. Of course the camera width and height is not getting updated, but this point is getting updated for that. So we need then 4 points. First of all, the camera X and Y position, so they are unique, and then of course the width and the height, and therefore we need to grab them, of course. So what do? Well, we create some variables, so var, and let's call it camera X. And how can we grab that? Well, you say camera get, and then here you get tons of functions, and view height and width, but we want to get view X and view Y. And then you need to input which camera you're using, because let's say we are having different ones. You have 0, 1, 2, blah 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 blah. Therefore we need to use the current one, which is the default one. So this is camera until we're hitting a green. Here we go, view camera, and then, well, our 0, 1. And of course we can use the same thing for the Y position. Easy peasy stuff. And then, well, we input those values here, bam and bam. But now what would be happening, that we are spawning from this point, which is not, we want to have it between here and here as a kind of fixed point. So therefore we need to grab the width and the height, and then we can customize it and use some random values. So for that we need to grab once again from our camera, so camera and then width. And how can we grab them? Well, get, and then view Where are you? Height, width, here we go. And which one? Well, from this specific default camera. So here you need to input that, and then similar to this, we do that with the height. Here we go. Of course, here we grab the height, bam. And then what we can do now, this is the easy part. So basically what we can do, say like, hey, we want to grab the X position, but the X and 0 is here. So basically we are going from this point on plus the width. So bam, plus the camera width. Then I don't know, let's go for, I don't know, 20, 30, doesn't really matter. And for the height, well, we have once again this position of the camera. So here we are grabbing this one, of course, if it's moving downward, and then we can use this as this point, because this is the Y value. And then between this and this point, and well, what is it? Well, it is camera Y plus the camera height. But of course now this isn't random, and therefore what we do is have a second or third or fifth variable. So random Y, and then we just say like, hey, we want to go between a random value, so random range, here we go, between 0, so as a start value the top one, and then the bottom one, which is the height. So we just put that in and say like, hey, sweet, here we take the camera Y position, which is the default 0 position, but of course with a random value in there. And for example, once we started, this is of course then looking a little bit nicer. Yes, and as you can see, nothing really has changed. It looks the same, but let's go downstairs and check it out if it does work. And it does work if I could fall down. But of course, as you can see, all the time they are spawning from the right point of our camera, so it's moving in there. And for example, if we are falling, which of course a little bit stupid, but as you can see, still they are being spawned. So mission accomplished. And of course, if you want to have it a little bit more, let's call it interesting, so therefore we can have a for loop, but for loops are a little bit more, I don't know, difficult to pull off. So let's go for repeat. There we go, sweet. Let's go for 20, so we're having more. How many did I have? Oh, even 50, so let's go for 50. And then what will happen, just put that in, well, those brackets, and we are creating 50 of those ones, and of course every time with a new random Y value, which is the good part. So here, once again, let's start it. 18 minutes and wow, way too long. Ooh, this looks good. And then, well, what do we want to have? First of all, we need to have it a little bit less alpha, because now they're clustering quite a lot. And the second of all, we need to give it a life, so they are longer rounds apart. Type life, life, here we go. And then you just need to input the particle, and then min max. I don't know what kind of values did I put in. Let me see, it was 180. Okay, let's go for 180, so basically 3 seconds. Min max, let's check it out. Go on, check it out. So this is looking good, and as you can see, it's screen filling, it is looking good, but here it's a little bit too soon, so let's go for, I don't know, 240, and then it is neat. And of course, this is the effect which we wanted to have, but of course a little bit overwhelming concerning how it looks like, and you need to wait a little bit. But now this is a pretty cool effect, so this looks like wind, but wind isn't this kind of big to see, so let's reduce the alpha. Of course, here you can play around with different kind of alphas if you like. So this is pretty neat. Yes, this looks pretty good. And of course, if you want to have it a little bit more, so let's go for 5%, because then we are getting into a sweet spot where it is transparent, it is not annoying for the eyes, but it is kind of a cool background effect. And of course I would even go for even a lower value, so it's not this kind of hard. I'm not sure if you can actually see that in the video now, so let's see. Yeah, this is a very subtle and cool way, and this is the wind. But let's go for the fog part, because hey, let's do the same stuff but for fog. And fog is a little bit different concerning how we set it up, because now we can of course take this whole part where we want to spawn it, but now we're not spawning it at this position, and then this looks a little bit messy now. We want to spawn it somewhere in the bottom area. Let's go for a different color, let's go for a nice blue. So we just want to have this kind of area being spawned, and fog is not just going from left to right. Of course you can do it like this, but I would say just spawn it randomly here or here or here, it doesn't really matter, and then go left or right, because this is how normally fog is. It's just basically going here and then going in one direction on the ground. This is most of the time, this is how fog is spreading. It's not going up, it's just on the ground and just going left or right, and of course three-dimensional going into another point. But here just go left and right, and this is pretty sweet. Here once again, kind of hopefully easy to understand what to do. So what do we do? Well, we just copy that kind of stuff, because hey, let's make life easy and call that fog. Bam. Of course we need to replace all that things quickly. And now first of all, our speed value needs to be very, very small. So here we go for very small values, even smaller than that, 0.0, bam. And then it will move very, very, very slowly the way we want it. And then of course we have our direction predefined here, but we make it random, go left or go right. So how can we do this? Well, we can basically take this whole thing and actually replace it by our particle which we want to spawn. So now our fog particle. And now we need to have a random X position also, because once again we need to spawn it somewhere here, here, here. So basically in this bottom area. So here this is a X position which needs to be randomly assigned. So how can we do this? Well, quite easy. We just say hey var random X, and then I don't know, random range. Did I even put random range? No, let's go for random range, come on. And then we go between a value which is camera X, so a 0 value, and then the total width, so camera width. And then what do we do? Well, we put that X position to the fixed X position of our camera. So, and this is then it. So basically what we're doing, this could be a value between 0 starting from the camera to the whole width, which is then on the right side, which is definitely where we want to have it. But now we want to be not everywhere in the room, so not the whole range of cameras. We want to have a value which is, then let's go, I don't know, 20 pixels. And what do? We just go minus and take the whole height into account. So basically we are, so you can actually see it, we are grabbing the Y position, we're going, wow, way too many colors, so let's make it even messier. So basically we're just going downwards, so we're grabbing the Y position, taking the height, and then going with a random minus value, I don't know, which is 20, so it can be a little bit higher, something like this, and then we're getting some values here. And then we are basically on the ground. So what do? Well, we just take the height, add it to our position. So basically we're completely starting at the bottom. So basically we shouldn't be seeing it, but then minus it a random value. And let's check it out, how it does look like. And let's go for, I don't know, for 20 particles. And let's see how that works out. And then we should be having the same effect, but just for a nice fog at the bottom. And I cannot see it. Yes, I can see it barely, but barely is not good enough. And therefore we go for different kind of alpha values. So let's go for alpha 3. And now it will blend between those 3 values. So starting its life and then in the end. And then what kind of values did I put in? So basically, and then 0.1, and then 0.01. So basically between 1% and then 10%, and then gliding back into 1%. And of course we must give it a little bit more time. So for example, once we start it now, you will see that it is there at the bottom. So looking kind of nice. So it's going left or right. So this is already looking pretty neat. But maybe you want to give it more life, but as it seems, it already does work, so we don't need to have it. And then, well, we have a pretty cool fog effect at the bottom. So basically the same stuff, but here just spawned in the bottom area and not on the right one. So that was it. Hopefully not too rambly, easy to understand, and now you can do this by yourself. And that was pretty much it. Have a good one. One up, Indy.